Howdy folks, I'm here to talk to y'all about heat guns tonight. Now I already had this Bauer, and I can use it with my DeWalt batteries with this adapter. I can take this thing apart and put a resistor in there and make it so that I can just put the DeWalt battery directly in there. I just hadn't had time to take this one right here apart yet, but I'm going to, and I'll show you why in a minute. Let me set this aside just for a minute. I've got this Hercules. I bought it today. And the reason I did, I'll show you here on this box, it was on a parking lot sale. Well, you know, the very important member club, ITC, whatever you want to call it, Inside Track Club. With that, we got 40% off today. So I got this thing for like 21 bucks. Well, these are pretty good heat guns. I mean, they're really good heat guns, as a matter of fact. I mean, if you need to do some shrink tubing, or you just need to heat a piece of hose to get it over a barb fitting, or you need to throw out a frozen lock on a car door or a piece of equipment, this is all you need. It'll get you into it, and you hadn't got to run a extension cord. Now this thing works pretty good. I'm gonna start it here, and when you let go of it, the fan runs for another 6 seconds there. That's just to cool it off so it don't damage itself in there. That's a good feature. But I tell you what, first thing I started to do is I was getting into this Hercules, and I was going to try to figure out if I could take some resistors and, make this thing work with another battery. You can pull this battery connector up out of here, and you can stick that on any battery that you want. I mean, it'll fit right on there. I've got a piece out of a DeWalt battery here, and I had that plugged into it, and had my alligator clips run from my Milwaukee battery here over there, and I've been playing with it, and I ain't been able to make it work at all. Well, I got to reading, and there's not much information on it, but from what I'm gathering, there's actually a digital signal here, and it requires a digital signal from the battery. Now these Hercules batteries are real good batteries if you got plenty of them. And I mean, all I've got is a 2.5 amp hour, because I recently got them for $14.99 a piece. And I got that with the 40% off. I mean, they're clearance to $24.99, because they're not gonna carry the 2.5s anymore. They're gonna have 2s. Well, the thing is, the 2.5s are a better built battery because they have Samsung cells in them. So I'm taking advantage of that. I've got myself 6 of these. And to tell you the truth, this little Hercules heat gun does just fine off of a 2.5. Now, a lot of stuff might not, such as a drill or an impact or a bandsaw or something like that, but this thing functions well enough off of that, okay? So for right now, I've give up on the idea of making this work, because it's going to take a chip and some programming to make that work, I'm afraid. I mean, I don't think there's any way that I can make it work with resistors. I don't know. I'm going to research it some more, but I really think it's going to take a chip. And I don't know. I may wind up taking, let's see, I've got one apart somewhere. Let's see. I may wind up taking a board out of a Hercules battery and putting that in an adapter so that I can use the adapter to power these with something else. Now, that's a workaround that I might do. I'll get back to y'all on that. But what I want to show you, this darn trigger safety is aggravating. You have to push that with the side of your trigger finger like that, and then when you do that, you can't squeeze the trigger with your trigger finger, or I can't. I have to do it with my third finger there, and that's just no good. I don't like it. So here's my solution, and now y'all only do this at your own risk. I'm gonna tell you that. I'm not responsible for what you do, okay? Now, the Hercules and the Bauer, they're virtually identical, other than this board and, you know, the way the battery fits in there. And that's all pretty close. But as far as all this other stuff, they're the same. And here's what you got to do. Remember, you're doing this at your own risk. But right here's what you got to do to eliminate that aggravation with that trigger. Is you just reach in here. Be sure and take the right side off the tool. And in most tools, it's the right side you want to take off for everything to stay intact. Now, this thing will try to pop out on you, and it'll get gill flirted, and you'll have to twist it around about a turn and a half to get it back in there, and the trigger will try to pop out on you, and so will the spring. But you'd reassemble that stuff. It's not really that complicated or any problem, just a little fumbling. But anyway, when you get it apart, you just reach in here and pull this little doodad right here out, and then you ain't got the problem with having to mash it no more to operate that trigger. And the trigger's still got a stout spring behind it, so it's not going to get mashed accidentally very easy. And that's going to make this thing a whole lot easier to use. And, you know, when it's sitting there on the desk or on the workbench and you want to pick it up and do a piece of shrink tubing and you got something held in your hand and you're trying to be careful, you ain't got to fumble with that. But I wouldn't leave the battery in it full time. I mean, I don't do that anyway with my tools. I leave it in it during the day while I'm working. But I sure wouldn't leave the battery in it and throw this thing in a duffel bag or in a box with a bunch of other tools. I mean, if enough pressure gets against there, the trigger could get depressed and that could cause a fire or something, but it's not real likely. I mean, that trigger is pretty hard to mash. Let's see if I do it without it coming apart here on me. It's pretty strong spring. I'm not afraid of it. But anyway, like I say, these are good heat guns for what they're intended for. And, you know, you're not going to go heating and bending PVC with them or nothing. But they're plenty good for shrink tubing and thawing locks and so forth like that, like I was talking about. There's many uses I'm sure you'll find for them, and they're plenty hot enough for most of that. But as far as the resistor deal goes, and fooling this thing to be able to put some other kind of battery in it, that's a no-go right now. Unless I can take this board out and make that work. And I've got my doubts about that. Somebody else said you could, but I'll tell you why I've got my doubts. I've got this board out of a DeWalt battery right here. And I've tried putting this in DeWalt's and hooking my jumpers to here and getting DeWalt drill or light or whatever to work. And it won't do it. It don't like it. Once you cut the wires loose from all the cells, all them balance leads, it makes this thing dumb. And it don't work anymore. And there is a board right there. Now, I'm real close to a workaround on the DeWalt with 3 different resistors. I am going to be able to make DeWalt's work. As a matter of fact, I've got a light that is working with 1 resistor. I don't mind telling you, I've got one with a 2.3K resistor, just 1 in it. And I can hook that light up to Bauer battery or Hercules battery, and it works just fine. But fooling it with a board out of a DeWalt battery has not worked so far. Now, maybe I need to tear down a 4 amp hour and get the board out of it, because this is a board out of a 2 amp hour. But anyway, that's just giving you an example for why I don't think this board is going to work once I cut it loose from all the cells. But, you know, I may sacrifice one and try that. But don't be afraid of these heat guns here. I mean, they're pretty darn nice other than that trigger lock. I like them. And I've got both of them now. I got a Hercules and a Bauer. and I don't have any problem with them. They do what I need them to do. And I'm going to put this one back together. The next time y'all see it, it won't have this darn safety in it, and it'll be a whole lot nicer. That's all I got to talk about to you about these things. I just wanted to run that by you and show that to you and tell you where I'm at with trying to make other batteries work in here and show you what I was successful at. That's real easy to take that out of there. I mean, you could glue that to one side, but it'd still be a pain, and I've done that before, and they come loose, and then they hang up on you again, and, you know, then you got the glue in there, and it's causing problems and not letting this thing move correctly, so I'd just rather take it out. All right, thank y'all for watching. Y'all have a good one. If it's done anybody any good, consider going down there and liking and subscribing, and I appreciate y'all.